the quality of life of people living with HIV. And I was joined by several members of the Reunion Project at that symposium and giving our presence and our voice to the issues and the discussion. One of the key points that I would like to make in my moments here are certainly stressing the importance of quality of life for people living with HIV. Somewhat self-evident, but I think it's important to mention that. Second, the quality of life should be the overall framework for the response to HIV, particularly as we go beyond just focusing on ending the epidemic and moving to include a focus on enhancing and ensuring the quality of life of people living with HIV for the decades ahead. And that including quality of life or looking at quality of life as a framework for the response to HIV, we must recognize the urgency of now and work to re-engineer the response to HIV. What do we need to achieve optimal quality of life for people living with HIV now and the decades ahead? And today's virtual meeting, with its focus on quality of life, is a good opportunity to begin that re-engineering of the response to HIV. The urgency of now, and as I said, it means a focusing on how do we enhance the quality of life. And I'm going to borrow wording from that Jeff Berry made in one of our caucus meetings last week of a goal of increasing the healthy lifespan of people living with HIV. That needs to be a primary focus of a re-engineered focus and response to the HIV response. I want to ground us in defining quality of life. And certainly there are many, many definitions, perspectives on what is meant by quality of life. I want to use the definition of the World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization's definition of quality of life is an individual's perception of their position in life in the context of the culture and value systems in which they live, and in relation to the goals, expectations, standards, and concerns of the individual. I like this definition of the World Health Organization because it puts the emphasis on how we as individuals experience our quality of life. Do I think I have a good quality of life? Do you think you have a good quality of life? Defining quality of life in terms of how we experience our life. This definition of the World Health Organization also highlights the intersectional nature of quality of life. Our racial, ethnic, gender identities inform how we view our quality of life. Our sexual expression, where we live, affects how we view and assess our quality of life. Our value systems, the culture, all of that blends in how we define and therefore how we experience our quality of life and determining and assessing our quality of life. Quality of life is subjective, how a person perceives their own reality. Another aspect of quality of life that I want to highlight is aging as a factor that affects the individual person's quality of life. And certainly that is a key focus of the Reunion Project. And it highlights the interaction between a person's chronological age and the number of years a person has been living with HIV. And this interaction is important to the quality of life, certainly of longtime survivors and older adults who are living with HIV, long-term survivors who are less than 50 years of age, and lifelong HIV survivors who acquired HIV at birth or in early childhood. The interaction of HIV and the aging process is important in looking at and defining quality of life. Our chronological age and the number of years living with HIV are important factors when we look at and consider quality of life and how we as individuals, again, define quality of life. My first key point that I want to make is, as I said, the importance of quality of life to people living with HIV. And this, again, may seem obvious, but I think it is important to highlight. Focusing on quality of life means moving beyond a focus on viral load, viral suppression, and other health-related outcomes. Moving beyond that to a comprehensive understanding of well-being. Biomedical issues and health concerns and outcomes are certainly important, and as long-term survivors who have benefited from the biomedical advances, certainly we know the importance that they have. But we also know that our lives are more than our viral load. Our overall physical, mental, sexual health is important. The quality and safety of our housing is important. Our economic security is important. The degree to which we have or do not have human rights is important. And all of these have to be taken into consideration when we look at quality of life. So I think it is so very important that we consider the total context of our lives, people's lives, and we want to work to enhance, and as we should work to enhance quality of life, the values, the culture of all of us needs to be taken into consideration. And the HIV Caucus is in the process of doing a survey of quality of life, and a preliminary report on that survey was just recently released. And that report, again, highlights how important quality of life is to those of us who are living with HIV. And it highlights the multifaceted challenges faced by all of us who are living with HIV as we strive to assure and get and attain what we consider a good quality of life. And a comprehensive approach to understanding quality of life means taking into consideration the physical and mental, our physical and mental health, socioeconomic stability, the social and environmental support, where we live, our friends, our families, these are factors. The importance of reducing stigma and discrimination are critical, and in fostering inclusivity and equity. Again, the importance of quality of life for people living with HIV must be recognized and throughout the response to HIV. And the federal response has, I think, begins to recognize this. As I said, the national HIV strategy that was updated in the early years of the Biden-Harris administration gave a beginning nod, and the implementation plan, as I noted, with its 5 quality of life indicators. Just recently, in September of this year, the CDC issued a special report on the progress of achieving quality of life and HIV stigma indicators. And this past week, the Office of National AIDS Policy released a progress report on quality of life. And that report noted that we are not making progress on two key indicators of quality of life. That is self-rated good or better health, and reducing the unmet need for mental health services from a mental health professional. Those two factors we are not making progress on in terms of achieving quality of life. And I think we need to really take a look at those deficiencies and further our efforts. My second point is that given the importance of quality of life to people living with HIV, we should use quality of life as the framework for the response to HIV going forward into the next decades. And this entails explicitly and intentionally focusing on quality of life. It means expanding the response to HIV to not just ending the epidemic, but maximizing the optimal quality of life for all people living with HIV. And I think if we centralize quality of life in the ongoing response to HIV, that leads us, in my opinion, to the necessity, not alone the importance, of re-engineering the response to HIV to include again, more focused and intentional attention to the quality of life of people living with HIV, with the two equal goals of ending the epidemic and maximizing the optimal quality of life for all people living with HIV. That means I think we must begin working now to assess the current quality of life indicators and identify any additional quality of life indicators for people living with HIV. Indicators that align with the intersectional understanding of quality of life. Indicators that can look at stigma and discrimination, and some of the additional human rights and social justice, and too often social injustice factors that impact and affect our quality of life. We also need to determine the best set of metrics for quality of life indicators. And we need, again, metrics that on the racial and ethnic equity and other social and economic determinants. Developing policies, public policies and programs that address quality of life indicators and address the disparities of how people living with HIV see our own quality of life. And an example of those policies is repealing or modernizing laws that criminalize HIV. HIV criminalization must be part of the agenda